Okay, boys and girls, so for today, we are on now day 3 of our research project. And today we want to talk a little bit about character traits. So I've included this page. I know that many of you probably have something very similar to this in your ELA binder. If you are at home watching this and you are an e-learning student, this is something that we discussed at the beginning of the year. And we are going to include a copy of this page for you to refer to in today's folder. But we want to talk about the character traits today of our immigrant, the one that we're focused on and we're studying. Remember that teachers are really modeling their thinking through this research project with that immigrant by the name of John Muir. And when I look at this page, I know that character traits are really describing the person. This will give you guys kind of a starting point, including some of the character traits that are very common that we often see described or displayed rather by our characters. But I also challenge you that if there's maybe another character trait that comes to mind as you are reading about your immigrant, then maybe you want to include that. So I now am going to go back to the text. Now that I remember what character traits are referring to, I'm going to find the section on my immigrant. Remember, we're talking about John Muir, who came from Scotland. Now, there were a couple things that I remember about this man. Again, he was younger when he came over here with his family, but I think from what I remember, he worked a lot on the farm for his family, correct? They had farmland over in Scotland, and it said that he was working and he had like a small plot to tend in the family garden. And so he was helping his dad, and they even described his dad somewhere as being like this kind of a strict man. I think that came on like page 9 of the text under this heading, hard work. It says right here, it was hard work for an 11-year-old boy. John's father was strict. He made sure his boys completed their work. So something that I think of when I've read through this text and I think about my immigrant, John Muir, one character trait that comes to mind is the word obedient. I don't know if all of you know that word or if you've heard that word before, but oftentimes when we hear the word obedient, we might be thinking of like a dog or like a cat. And if they are obedient, meaning that they obey, they do what they are told to do. Well, obedient can also refer to people. So now I have this section of my trifold, and just like we've done the past 2 days, we will include a photograph once we've completed this so you can see exactly what your brochure is going to look like. But up at the top, I can see that I have that title, Character Traits of blank. So just like before, we're going to fill in our immigrant's name. Ours is John Muir. And I just read that he was really a hardworking boy at the age of 11. He worked on the farm. And I said that kind of reminded me of that character trait, the word obedient. So this character trait that I want to fill in right here, or this line rather, is where we want to include or indicate the character trait. Now you might be wondering, what is this box for? Well, guys, we always ask you to include evidence to support your thinking. So I'm thinking to myself, why is John Muir obedient? How did I come up with that character trait? Well, here's my evidence. 11-year-old John worked hard for his strict father. Strict, I guess, meaning he had like pretty high expectations for his son. Now, what was he doing? He was completing hours of work in the fields. I'm even going to include where I found that text evidence. That was right from page 11. Excellent. Now, for you guys, I want you to include at least 2 character traits. So this was character trait number 1, and now we're going to include a second one. So that's the expectation. We're including at least 2. So now I need to think again about what I've learned about this character and what character trait might I assign to him? Or which one do I think really describes this character, or this immigrant, John Muir? I'm going to go back to this section of the text. I know that he actually walked, right, a really far distance. And this was when he was older, right? When he grew up, he's working in a factory. He had this accident and he was nearly blind. Then it says when he recovered, he knew he had to follow his own path through life. So he really kind of wanted to make his own decisions about what he was going to do. He walks from Indiana to Florida in just under 2 months. But then what was he doing? We go on to learn that down here, he had something to do with Yosemite National Park. I don't know if you remember that. I also learned, that's right here in this text box. He had a love of nature, and as an adult, he played a part in preserving or saving many beautiful places. He pushed to create Yosemite National Park and helped found the Sierra Club. And that's an organization that works to preserve the environment today. So for me, boys and girls, when I think about all of this together now, that, my goodness, he traveled over here, left his home in Scotland, and then as he grew up, he decided that he was going to create this own path, and then he actually physically walked a very long distance to then follow his love of nature. That, to me, reminds me of a word, and I don't know if you've heard this word before, but somebody who feels very strongly about something and really loves something is very passionate. So now, why was John Muir very passionate? Well, it said in the text, his love of nature, motivated him to work to preserve beautiful places. That was found on page 11. It was in the text, and it was also there in that caption in that text box. Okay, so now it's time for you to go back, look in the text. Remember, you are focusing on the immigrant that you've decided to really focus on and study this week. And you have to, like we said, create a minimum of 2 character traits that describe your immigrant. Those of you who finish early, we challenge you to go on and identify a 3rd character trait with evidence to support your thinking. All right, go ahead and get started. As before, we will include a photograph of this section so you guys know exactly what it should look like.